Hey everyone, I thought I'll quickly show you how to do Windows 95 in VirtualBox. Now, Windows 95 is a little bit more tricky than newer operating systems since it cannot actually boot from a CD or optical drive. So you need to first load like a boot image file into the floppy drive space so you can set up MS-DOS so you can set up Windows 95. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first things first, new virtual machine, Windows 95. Next. Now, Windows 95 doesn't have support for a lot of memory. So if you go too high, it will crash. So I'm just going to stick with 64 meg. That's more than enough. Disk space for 2 gig, that's fine. Version disk image is also fine. Dynamic, yes. That's all good. I like that. Right, so now do not launch it yet. There's a few things you need to do. So first things first, we need to mount a floppy device image. And where will you get this image? I will share it with you under resources. There'll be a Windows 95 download link later today, and you can download everything you need to do this from there. Right, so. And then we also need to mount an optical drive because we want to install Windows 95, and that comes on a CD. So there's mine. I've pre-downloaded them, but this will all be in the package that I make available on resources, so you don't have to go and dig around for them. I will also give you some CD keys to use. Right, so now that's set up, so I'm going to say start. And it's going to launch the setup interface. But you can't see that because I'm only capturing part of Windows, so let me just quickly share that with you. I'm going to say okay. There we go. Right, so now you can see what I'm sharing in a little DOS box. Right, so what are we looking at? We are looking at a MS-DOS installation image that has a drive mounted or available for the optical drive. In this case, it's drive R using the banana driver. I don't know where they get the names either. Right, so first thing you need to do is we need a hard drive to install it on. So now we've told VMware it can have 2 gigs, but that hard drive doesn't have a file system or anything. And you can't install without a file system. You will learn later about this later in OFS about file system. So what we're going to do, we're going to format it. So I'm going to say fdisk. And I want a DOS partition or logical DOS drive. Yeah, enter. Yes, I want to create a primary DOS partition. Yes. Am I sure I want to do this? Yes. Right, so now I need to reboot the machine. Best way to do that is to just hit Control-Alt-Delete. So I'm going to do that on my virtual keyboard. And it's going to reboot. Here we go. You see it's nice and quick. And we're back to the command prompt. Right, so now we still need to format the C drive. We haven't done that yet. So I'm going to say format C. Yes. And I'm going to call the drive. You don't have to call it anything. I'm just going to call it 195. Right, so now we have a 2 gig hard drive created in VMware or VirtualBox that we can install Windows to. So the next step will be to launch the actual Windows installer. Now, what is important is that the optical drive is drive R, as you can see there from the top in that little window. So what we need to do is remember that. And then we want to copy, if I can get my mouse back, there we go. Then we want to copy the contents from the optical drive onto the hard drive to install. Why do we want to do that? Because Windows 95 wasn't really optical drive friendly, so it can cause bugs and issues. And you don't want bugs and issues, so why not just copy it and then have everything go super fast? Right, so how do we copy? Well, we use Xcopy because that's building to DOS. And the optical drive is R, as we saw, and I want to copy everything on R. and I want to, copy it to the C drive. Where on the C drive? Well, I'm going to make an install directory, and there we go. That should do it. Now it's copying everything from the virtual optical drive to the virtual hard drive inside this VM that we've created. This takes a few seconds, so don't panic if it takes a little longer or slower. This depends entirely on your hard drive and your CPU and all that, your machine. I think it's nearly done. Okay, I've paused it just a little while so it can copy, and it's done now. So now we need to go to the C drive that we created, and then we need to go to the directory that we told it to copy to, and then we have to do something very crazy. We have to run setup. So let's do that. Setup. Yes. And that is the start of it. And that's how easy it is if you have all the right tools. So like I said, I will share all the stuff you need on resources and OFS module 1. And then you can run through this yourself, and you can then use Windows 95 if you want and see what it's like. Or there's also the Windows 95 as an app on resources, which basically just runs it in its own little virtual container. So you don't have to do any of this just to see what Windows 95 is like. So I'm going to accept the license agreement. Yeah, that's fine. Do I want to install the C Windows? I do want to install the C Windows because that's a default and you don't mess with defaults. Typical, yeah, it's fine. It's going to ask me for a key. Now I will give you the key. It'll be a text file within the download that you can have. I'm going to just give me a second. And I've got the key in, and now we're going to have to click next. And now you can set up Windows like you would set up any OS. And it will now configure and set up Windows 95 in VirtualBox. And then you can have a look at it. So it's a little bit more complicated than installing Windows 10, and even more complicated than installing Windows 98 SE because it doesn't natively understand anything about CD-ROMs. So you kind of have to boot it from DOS. In this case, it'll be that little Windows image that we added, and then it would be able to copy the files from the optical drive, the CD-ROM, onto the local hard drive, and it'll allow us then to boot Windows 95 and run it. So I'm going to end the video here because I don't really need to have another instance of Windows 95 set up, and I will share this video with you guys shortly. Okay, so you have followed my guide to install Windows 95, but you're still not in Windows 95. You might be getting an error. Now, there's a few reasons why it could be. I'm going to try and show you as many of them as I can now to resolve them. I'm starting Windows 95 up now from my virtual machine. Let me just minimize this. And if we're incredibly lucky, it's going to error out. Okay, so no error yet, but you can see here you're landing back in MS-DOS. Why? Because we didn't dismount this image file. If you take that away, it'll boot straight to the hard drive. So I'm not going to do that now because that's the easy way. Let me show you another way to get into Windows and hopefully then get an error so I can show you how to get out of the error. So you need to go is navigate to the C drive, then navigate to the Windows directory, and then launch Windows by running win. And it's going to moan about something, don't worry about that. And it's either going to give us a protection error or the VFAT error. There we go, system altered, right. So to solve this one, super easy. I'm just going to close this and say power off. And you go back to your virtual machine, you go to your settings, you go to your storage, you find the floppy image, and you remove it. Right, so the only thing you want to boot is the actual hard drive that you created, the VDI file. Right, so let's try it again. Let's see what happens. If you do run into the Windows protection error that pops up, that's because your CPU is much, much faster than Windows ever thought it would be. So I'm going to boot normal. You can see it's working now, so that's all good. To fix the CPU error or the Windows protection error, all you need to do is follow the directions here that I placed in the Windows 95 directory. It's the zip file that you can download from Mega, and the link is in the resources under OFS. And it'll tell you exactly what to do. Essentially, you're going to mount the ISO file that you find in there here as an extra. Let me just show you the process. You go to storage. You're going to go controller. Well, it's not going to allow me now. You're going to click the plus button and you're going to mount the ISO file. Why is it not allowing me to do it now? Well, because the system is already running. And OK, and you can see it's going to boot into Windows. There we go. There's Windows 95. Sweet and short. No issues. Let me just show you how to mount the ISO file to get the fix for the CPU to run. So you do is you click there, you find that fixed CPU ISO that you would have downloaded from Mega via the Moodle link, and it's going to boot. You just follow the directions here. It's going to be like a red screen. It's going to tell you to do stuff, and you just click through it, then unmount it, boot Windows 95, and it'll be happy. So I hope this helps a little bit, and I'm going to end the video here.